Fantasy Football Happy Hour with Matthew Berry, served by Applebee's.
Welcome to the Fantasy Football Happy Hour. That was Josh Allen at the top of the show, who drinks for free today because he technically threw a touchdown to himself. One of the more remarkable fantasy feats in quite some time.
Yeah, and got those points on his fantasy team, as you heard there. One of us. One of us.
That's why he was yelling for the ball.
Well, and I've talked about this before, but every year I get to go to do the NFLPA rookie premiere, and so I interview all these kids when they're rookies, and usually when they come up, I introduce myself. Hey, Matthew Berry, I do a bunch of this interview is going to be about fantasy football. I do fantasy football. So I introduced myself. And when I met Josh Allen, his rookie year, I said, hey, Josh, I'm Matthew Berry. He goes, oh, I know who you are. He's like three-time champ over here. And we talked about his fantasy team as part of the interview, and he played all through high school and college. So he's a big fantasy player. I make all the jokes, but he's a proud Fantasy Life investor.
It all makes sense now.
Well, right. It was fairly easy to get him, to be honest with you, because he loves fantasy. He plays it, obviously, and he is a massive fantasy asset as well to all of his managers, including himself. Huge game last night in the snow.
Yeah, I think Josh Allen is one of those guys who just has 100% approval rating.
Yes.
And to see him, particularly the interviews he was doing on Radio Row last year after he lost that game to the Chiefs, where he was superhuman in that playoff game. It wasn't his fault at all. He was just so sad afterwards.
Yeah.
It's we lost again. There's nothing more I could have done. You got Sherfield and Diggs dropping these bombs. And so it's great to see him now really getting his moment again.
He is similar. Again, I've now interviewed him twice, and similar to what I've said about Baker Mayfield, he is one of those guys that, you just you leave that interview going that guy's awesome. Yeah, I agree with you. Obviously his on-field play has been amazing. It's not just, at a high level in the NFL, but there's just there's a gutty recklessness to it that, is sort of endearing as well. He's a perfect fit for Buffalo, right? In terms of that fan base and that style of play. And so he becomes the first quarterback in NFL history with a passing, rushing, and receiving touchdown in the same game. By the way, speaking of legends, he breaks Jim Kelly's record for franchise record for the most total career touchdowns as well. What else can you say about him other than, number 17 on the field, number one in your hearts?
Well, him and Amari Cooper had a lot to say after the game on that specific play. Take a listen.
It's got to be up there. I wish he got credited for something there, an assist or a passing touchdown, but again, I kind of threw a bad ball, so I was just kind of chasing it. It was kind of tipped around. He made a heck of a catch. Yeah. I threw it. It was just kind of sticky hand, and I just kind of chased the ball just to be there. And we made eye contact, and
that's what it was, yeah.
He just pitched it, and I had to go make a play.
I was wondering what he was doing over there. That doesn't usually happen, when you throw, a dart route like that. I just saw him. I figured he was over there because he wanted the ball, so I gave it to him.
They are having fun in Buffalo.
They certainly are, especially with a stat line like this that leads to Josh Allen over 28 points in fantasy. He heads into Monday Night Football as the QB1 right now.
He's now had 22 or more fantasy points in 3 of the past 4 games. He's matchup proof as well. He was drafted as the number 1 or 2 quarterback in pretty much every draft across the board this year, rightfully so as well. Do me a favor. Who has him in our league? Can you look that up real quick for me? I forget who has him in our league.
There's no need.
Do you know who?
Where are you in the standings at the moment?
You're scrapping for a playoff spot.
That's not true.
Clawing in the dirt.
At the end of this week, I'm going to be tied for, I think, first or second.
Is that right?
Oh,
no.
Yeah.
What, are you falling off a cliff first?
His team was getting slapped around like a grape this week.
I wasn't really following what was happening on Thanksgiving, and then the morning after I checked, I was down 77-0. It's all right, I'm probably going to lose this week.
Yeah. His grapes got slapped. You have no idea.
Well, I get Christian McCaffrey.
I've been too locked into my matchup with Denny.
Yeah.
Wow, that's okay. So maybe,
I'm telling you. Yeah, that's right. Anyway, the answer to the question is I have him. Yeah. Who has 2 thumbs and Josh Allen in our show league? This guy. There you go. That's right. There you go. Thank you very much.
The miracle play, which will be one of the defining plays of the season, Like, that's Amari Cooper's passing touchdown. He threw the pass.
I know.
It's one of the quirky things about the sport.
It
It was a negative 2-yard pass from Josh Allen, and then it was a separate pass from Amari Cooper for the touchdown.
I mean, and credit to Josh is, again, one of the reasons why he's so likable. Like, he owns it. He's just like, I threw a bad ball. And yet, despite that, I get double fantasy points. I get credit with.
It's like the Bruce Willis film Looper. He's going into the back and forth in time to create a touchdown. It's very strange.
Yeah, it's super weird. He's also just a Big Show texted me this. Josh Allen, the third player in the Super Bowl era to have a touchdown catch and not record a reception. Jahmyr Gibbs in Week 3 did it this season, and Allen Rice in 1984. I know you guys all remember that play as well. But it's just a statistical quirk. Love that Chris Collinsworth plays fantasy. He's talked to me about that before as well, so I love that. Other thing from this game on the Buffalo side of the bill was just fourth straight game now with multiple goal line rushes for James Cook, even though Allen gets in has a rushing touchdown. Just he had the big run as well, but just James Cook continues to be locked in as an RB1, despite the fact that you see some Ray Davis out there and Ty Johnson. But James Cook just I think this is unbelievable. Since week 2, James Cook has the second most rushing touchdowns in the NFL. I don't think you would guess that if I said to you, who's second on the list. You wouldn't come up with James Cook. But again, talented player that they're using a lot in different ways.
They have the Rams, the Lions, the Patriots, and the Jets in their next 4 as we march towards the fantasy playoffs. On the other side of this, guys,
that Bills-Lions game is going to be fun.
It's going to be awesome. It's everybody thinking Super Bowl preview?
Maybe.
Not definitely, but maybe.
No, maybe.
There's going to be a lot decided in that game. I think that's MVP on the line. If Josh Allen wins that game, I think he'll be the MVP. If he loses it, it's going to deflate a little bit.
Massive seeding for each side.
Yeah. There's a lot
important. The Eagles are coming on in the NFC, and obviously in Buffalo trying to chase the Chiefs there. So, yeah, fascinating game.
On the other side, just a bad season gets worse for the San Francisco 49ers. They just can't get right. Obviously, forget the loss. It's 35-10. Another loss in this game, Christian McCaffrey suffered a potentially season-ending PCL injury. He left the game in the second quarter, did not come back. It was Kyle Shanahan that said after the game it's potentially season-ending. I mean, Jordan Mason comes in, Jay, and does what he does, but the Niners have had some of the worst injury luck in recent NFL history that I can remember this year.
It's the year from hell all over for the Niners. Just never really got going. They're missing so many bodies now. We knew this coming into the season that they were an old team and they were more at risk for this, but you couldn't project anything like this. McCaffrey, and it's a shame too because this was the first time all season he started to look like himself. Like, he was playing very well. He was 7 for 53 on the ground.
He had that one trip. I'm like, honestly, like if that guy doesn't get a hand on him, McCaffrey goes to the house on that play. Like, he looked explosive. I had my, I mean, he was a big part of my Sunday Night Football parlay as well. Again, I know there are a ton of fantasy managers out there that are incredibly frustrated. I'm one of them that drafted Chris McCaffrey number 1 overall. You missed the first 10 games of the season. You finally get him back. You think, okay, for the playoff run, and now, unfortunately, this. All that said, I feel for the guy. I feel for Chris McCaffrey. I promise you, fantasy managers, that as much as all of us are depressed, I promise you that Chris McCaffrey and his family are even more so, as are the 49ers and their fan base as well. This just sucks, man. There's no good way to put it. I hope it's not season ending. I hope it's not career ending. You know what I mean? Like,
things are piling up now.
You just, at some point, you know what I mean? Like, you start thinking about your life after football. And again, I'm speculating. I have no inside knowledge about that at all. And obviously, this will be a big story as well. But really, really tough break for McCaffrey, for his family, for the 49ers, and for his many fans worldwide. Bummer there as well. The analysis here is obvious. Until, if and when Chris McCaffrey comes back, until that time, it's Jordan Mason. There were 6 different games that Jordan Mason was healthy in that Chris McCaffrey was out. He averaged over 15 fantasy points per game. He will be, to the extent that he was dropped in any leagues, he will be the number 1 pickup tomorrow if he is still available in some leagues. I see some leagues where people thought, I'm done. Maybe you'll see some Isaac Guerrero as well, but it feels like it'll be Jordan Mason as long as McCaffrey is out.
Yeah, just a lot of uncertainty now around the Niners with Purdy's shoulder as well. Like, would you be shocked if Purdy is shut down at some point? Like, the team is 5-7. They're very likely not going to make the playoffs. I just don't know what this team is going to look like in 3 weeks. Obviously, until that point, they are still alive. They'll still, I think, throw Purdy out there for the time being, but there's a lot of downside now with the team.
I mean, here's the thing. They're home to the Bears, which in theory should be a winnable game under a new coach as well. Then they're home to the Rams. And so you see their upcoming schedule. The problem is, challenges, because you'd think like, hey, just not your year, shut down your guys, get ready for next year, try to develop some young players. But because that division they're in is so weak, I mean, they're 2 games out of first. They're last, but they're also 2 games out of first. And as you see there, they get the Rams in week 15. They get the Cardinals in week 18. Like, those are games that could, Niners at Cardinals in week 18 could decide the division.
It really could. That's the problem.
It's just they have a chance. They need to beat Miami as well, and that's going to be a tough game against the Lions. But would it shock you if they beat the Bears and the Rams and the Miami Dolphins? Those 3 next.
And then they're 8-7.
Then they're 8-7, and you know what I mean? Right.
Yeah,
they're going to get through it.
They're plus 1,100 on DraftKings to win the division. That's basically their playoff odds as well. They're not going to get a wild card. It's very unlikely. So they're alive. They beat the Bears, then they stay alive more and more. But I wouldn't be shocked if by the time we get to the Lions, they have nothing to play for.
1,000%. Yeah. But I'm just saying, if you're Kyle Shanahan, if you're John Lynch, if you're the 49ers organization, I think you're just sort of you're still thinking hey. Oh, we're still alive. We're not ready to shut it down.
And Bosa back. Yeah.
1,000% as well.
All right, our next game, the Eagles at Baltimore. They take care of business, and they are humming right now, guys. And it's not just Jalen Hurts, who we'll get to in a second, but Saquon Barkley does the impossible. Nobody's been able to run on the Ravens this year. Barkley has 23 carries for over 100 yards and a touchdown. We got to hear from Saquon after the game on staying focused while all the MVP chatter gets louder.
I said goes right into the locker room and enjoy the win, and then come in on Monday, get the work in, rehab, get my body ready, and get ready for the next game. And I believe that's Carolina back home. So I appreciate the MVP chant. So it's great. But at the end of the day, the most important thing is winning football games. And I've been so locked in and so focused on my preparation and the way that I work throughout the week. And there's a reason why I'm getting those chants. So if I continue to take care of that, then when the season's over, we'll look up, see what happens. But at the end of the day, it's continue to get wins and put ourselves in position to go deep in and run the playoffs.
Maybe the most likable player in the NFL.
I was just going to say, him and Josh Allen, 2 guys with 100% approval rating.
And just how Saquon has, I know Giants fans don't love to see it, but the new life he's found in a better situation and now in the MVP combo. But that's why he's staying. He's clearly locked in right now. As Jay, we take a look at the MVP odds movement around Saquon this year.
Yeah, and you can see that he was out to 100 to 1 just a few weeks ago, and now he's plus 300, second favorite for MVP after Josh Allen, who's minus 225 at DraftKings. I get that everyone has now anointed Josh Allen, and I get it. He is the favorite right now. He would win a vote held today, I think, but there's a lot of season left. Still got 5 weeks. Josh Allen's got to go on the road at the Rams, at the Lions the next 2 weeks. Saquon Barkley's on pace to break the all-time rushing record. I make it plus 250 that team runs the slate and finishes at 15-2 on a 13-game winning streak. And also, by the way, who's the best numbers of anyone? Lamar Jackson. He's still got the best numbers, and they have an easy schedule too, and they have a chance to run the slate, finish 12-5. So it's still pretty open, I think.
I would agree. But they're 8-5. The Ravens are 8-5, and let me put it this way: after this game, we'll talk about it fantasy-wise. But after this game, I would argue Saquon's MVP chances improved, and I think Lamar's chances went down.
Oh,
I don't
doubt.
think anything happened against the Eagles where you say that's, and you're looking at Lamar, that's our MVP. And again, he played well. He didn't have a bad game, but they lost, and the Eagles, credit the Eagles defense, and now some of this was because Justin Tucker missed 3 kicks in this one, 2 field goals and an extra point, but still, the Eagles, to the extent you can shut down Lamar Jackson, they shut him down. His QBR in this one was 41.6.
Yeah.
QBR is a metric that ESPN created that rates quarterbacks on a scale of 1 to 100. I think it's a pretty good metric in terms of how a quarterback played. So it's on a scale of 1 to 100. He got a 41.
Yeah. And the thing with Lamar, because when you look at his stats overall, they look fine. He was 237 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks, goes 8 for 79 on the ground. But the sneaky thing, and the thing that I think really affected his QBR, is he takes 3 sacks. He loses 31 yards on those sacks. He has a bad fumble as well that they recovered.
He had 2 fumbles. The one they recovered, one they didn't.
Yes. So overall, it certainly wasn't his best performance. And the Eagles' defense is just, this might be the best defense in football at the moment.
The team speed is insane, and that's what you need to not not shut down Lamar, but like you said, Matthew, contain Lamar, because he still got his in this one. He still throws for 2 touchdowns. He still runs for almost 80 yards, but it was enough that obviously Philadelphia was able to win again.
Yeah, a 5-point game in a game in which Justin Tucker, again, missed 2 field goals and an extra point. Yeah. Now, that touchdown came towards the end. They were up 24-12, and they kind of get a last, 50 seconds left kind of, oh, by the way, touchdown. So maybe it's, the Eagles play with different intensity, and maybe that touchdown doesn't happen if it's a closer game because Tucker makes his kicks. But still, credit the Eagles. And this is me wearing a Commanders jersey. I mean, you know me. I don't love anyone in the NFC East, but credit Philadelphia and the Eagles because their defense is playing unbelievable. And they went out and they did this without Devontae Smith. They went on the road to Baltimore and beat the Ravens in their house without one of their best players on offense.
Also, the game looked done. It looked done at 9-0. It looked like it was going to be a blowout. Jalen Hurts seemed rattled. It just was all going poorly. The Ravens were into -700 on the money line to win, and they were able to turn it around, and then they went full Eagles in the second half. They just never threw the ball. They never dropped back to pass, basically, because they were just able to get it done on the ground, and then Saquon has what for at least 3 hours was his MVP moment with that touchdown run, the 25-yarder, only for it to be outdone by Josh Allen in the nightcap. But, I mean, this team has a real case to be considered the best team in football right now.
It'll be really interesting to see what happens down the stretch between them and Detroit for who gets the number 1 seed and where the road to the playoffs go. Jalen Hurts, a so-so day fantasy-wise. He bails you out with a rushing touchdown. He throws one to Goddard as well. But as we head into Monday Night Football, he's just the 15th best quarterback in fantasy this week as well. Just 17.6. Almost half his fantasy points this year have come from rushing and rushing touchdowns. Again, gets another brotherly shove in this one. Second fewest passing yards this season. But that's what this team wants to be. They want to be a run-heavy team, play good defense. And weirdly, Jalen Hurts has become sort of a game manager.
Yep.
But I think for fantasy purposes, he's still a locked-in starter, even though, not a great day at the office for him.
Yeah, and I will say as well, the stats, they're not good. 11 for 19, 118 passing yards, 93 passer rating, 52 QBR. I thought he played really well in this game, and I thought he played better than he has in recent weeks. He just seemed to be much more in control. He's converting third downs when he needed to, was confident running. So I think Hurts, who was very shaky early in the season, I think he is turning the corner a bit, particularly after a tough first quarter.
They kind of play him the way the Steelers were playing Justin Fields in the beginning of the year, where fantasy production-wise, where it's like you're probably going to get 18 to 22 pass attempts, and you're going to need a lot of rushing production. But their line is so good and their run game is so good that he consistently gets that week in and week out.
Yeah, and they're not getting into shooters because their defense is so good. No. I mean, for the longest time, the Eagles' defense was a problem.
The back end was a disaster.
Right, and the offense was having to carry them, and now it's not. Their defense is so fantastic, and so again, on the road at a very tough opponent, no Devontae Smith, so they maybe wanted to play more conservative. That's what they did. Dallas Goedert continues his streak of when either A.J. Brown or Devontae Smith are out. He produces 3 for 35. He gets the touchdown. He gets banged up in this game as well. Doesn't seem serious. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But otherwise, typical game from Philadelphia.
Yep. And just one last thing on the Eagles. Their schedule the rest of the way. And this is why I think that Saquon has a real chance at MVP, because I think he has a chance to break the rushing record because of this schedule. They're 12-point favorites home to the Panthers, then they're home to the Steelers, they're at your Commanders, Matthew, and we saw what they did to the Commanders a few weeks ago, and then they're home Cowboys, home Giants.
Yeah.
This is as
Steelers
easy
is
as
the
it
only
gets.
Steelers is the only team that really, if you're an Eagles fan, the Steelers are the only team that should give you any sort of pause, and that is a home game. I could see Washington at Week 16 being a trap game for them sort of looking ahead to the, Washington will have time to prepare for that one. They won't be on a short week. But still, they're a better team than the Commanders, and this is me.
Yeah.
Homer McComerson.
The key is as well is they've got 4 of these last 5 games at home, and the one road game is what's the drive from Washington to Philadelphia? It's not a big trip, so they're going to be home, they're going to be rested, and look, they're going to be double-digit favorites in 3 of those games. They'll be 5.5, 6-point favorites against the Steelers. They'll be favored against the Commanders. That'll be narrower, but they're very set up.
That wouldn't even really be a road game because the Commanders have been so bad for so long. A lot of people didn't buy season tickets. Next year it'll be, but like you saw it at the Steelers game. There's going to be that'll be half filled with the Eagles fans because a lot of people in the DC area bought individual game tickets when they went on sale because they just didn't have a lot of season ticket sales because people weren't sure about who knows what those tickets went before they got Jayden Daniels. Lasting effects of Dan Snyder's ownership as well. other side of the ball, it was we talked. The only other thing I want to mention here is Mark Andrews, who quietly has a 20% target share in 3 of the last 4 games. Had 0 such games in the first 9 weeks of the season since week 6. Mark Andrews, friend of the podcast, friend of the show, is tight in 7 in points per game. He's scored in 6 of the 8 games in that stretch. It's been it's been much more touchdown dependent, but regardless, he has always been a red zone threat. Charlie Kohler banged up, so he's playing maybe more snaps as a tight end as well. And so Rashad Bateman leaves this game with an injury as well. Mark Andrews finally starting to look like Mark Andrews.
Yep, absolutely. And look, there was some miracle type of catches from Andrews, the type that weren't miracles in the previous years because he would just make those plays. It seems like just more than anything, just he looks fully healthy. Yeah,
I think he's back into being a low-end tight end 1, somebody that you can just confidently start no matter what.
Over in the AFC North, a matchup that doesn't really fit how these division games go in the AFC North. The Steelers beat the Bengals 44-38. The Bengals defense had no answer for Russell Wilson, who throws for over 400 yards, 3 touchdowns. He does throw the early pick, but we got to hear from Russ on after the game on just having fun with the Steelers this year.
Just one of the best quarterback rooms I've been in terms of just the work ethic and the talent too, and just the confidence we have in each other. I think also Arthur's done a great job of putting us in great situations, and all of us learning the offense and understanding what we want to do, how we want to get to it, us owning it too. For me, it's I just turned 36 the other day. I feel like I'm 26. Maybe I'm 30, but I think the best part about it is we're having fun, man, and just we're having a blast doing it. And we'll do whatever it takes, to do what we need to do, what's necessary.
I like that.
I'm just he's very corny, Russell Wilson, but I really do like him. He comes off as he's had a career renaissance here, and it's great to see him thriving.
We haven't had a renaissance.
We haven't had a renaissance.
I really
missed
it. Yeah.
The word renaissance is making a renaissance as well. But you're right. For whatever it's worth, again, I've interviewed Russell a couple of times. The corniness of you, that's just him.
Yeah.
That's not an act.
He's a movie quarterback.
Yeah.
That's what he is.
Literally
if you turn on a generic football movie, that's the quarterback.
Yeah. Dennis Quaid in any given Sunday.
Right. Honestly, any Lifetime or Netflix, or holiday Hallmark movie where the love interest is the team's, the local team's quarterback. That guy.
Yeah, it's to me, Jameis is too ridiculous. I just can't handle Jameis with these press conferences. It's just so insane. Russell Wilson at least is he's going half Jameis. It's it's a bit more digestible.
But credit where credit is due, right? Because we've had a lot of fun on this show over the years at Arthur Smith's expense. We've had some fun at Russell Wilson for his years in Denver.
And Najee Harris.
And
the
Najee
trifecta
Harris.
of having fun.
I've always been a Najee man.
You've always been a Najee man. That's fair. That's fair. But listen. You would be surprised to learn this, but Russell Wilson leads the NFL in completion percentage on passes of 15 or more air yards, which has always been sort of a hallmark of him back in the days in Seattle.
The moon ball.
The moon ball, highly efficient, run the ball well, play good deep. The Steelers team reminds me of some of those classic some of those classic Seattle teams that he was on, the Legion of Boom type teams, where it's just they're going to play really good defense, they're going to run the ball effectively, and they're going to take their deep shots, and he's going to be highly efficient, and that's what he has been as well. 29 of 38 in this one, as you mentioned there. Season highs for Russell Wilson in fantasy points, passing yards, and pass attempts. I don't want to call anyone out, but on Fantasy Football pregame, some moron on our desk said they would take the under in this game. I don't want to call anyone out. Because that was me.
I thought the Bengals would blow them out. I like Bengals minus 9.5.
I liked the Bengals line a lot too. I think the public got played on this one.
I did call the Steelers winning, but I said I would like that because I said this. This is a rule. This was what we gave out on Fantasy Football pregame very quickly. This is a rule that a buddy of mine, and it's actually my buddy's rule, but I've adopted it, which is anytime you see a team with a losing record getting points from a team with anytime you see a team with a losing record, giving points to a team with a winning record. Giving points to a team with a winning record. You take the team with a winning record every single time. And so I said, again, the Bengals were favored by 3 in this game. Yeah. Even though they had a losing record and the Steelers had the winning record. By the way, that also happened in the Jets game. The Jets ended up closing as 1.5 point favorites.
Market loves the Jets.
But if all you did was betting on favorites that are underdogs, betting on teams with winning records that are underdogs, you'd be 7-3 on the year. That we've just using that rule at 7-3. It went 2-0. I took the Steelers money line. I took the Steelers +3 as well on pregame. But I did say I thought it would be a low-scoring AFC North battle. Credit them as well. And Arthur Smith has done a great job with his offense as well. We thought this would be more of a Jalen Warren game, but Najee Harris. Every time you think Najee Harris is dead, it's the Undertaker gift.
And Halloween. It's unbelievable.
6th straight game with at least 18 touches. Since week 6, he's the 15th best running back in fantasy, Najee is. Warren doesn't do a ton in this game. Every time he touches the ball, though, he looks explosive.
He always looks awesome. You just need him out there.
But here's my question for you guys. Do you think we are seeing now an emergence of Pat Freiermuth as this passing offense starts to get going? So 6 for 68 and a touchdown here on 7 targets. His highest target share since week 4 was 19%. It's only his 3rd game this season with double-digit fantasy points. And this is a game, again, which was sort of like a back and forth where they scored over 40. So, it doesn't feel like Steeler football. Are we buying Pat Freiermuth, or we're just kind of good day at the office because of game script here?
I gotta say, I have no idea what to make of the Steelers offense. I still remember how bad they looked 2 weeks ago against Baltimore, where Russ threw one of the worst picks I've seen, and they couldn't move the ball at all, and I think they scored a touchdown in that game. And they didn't look great against the Browns on offense, but again, that was in the snow, a bit of a weird game. And they go up against the Bengals defense, and they eviscerate them. And the Bengals don't have a good defense, but to eviscerate anyone to this level in the NFL is a good sign. Look, I think it was just the best possible matchup for Pat Freiermuth, so I don't think that he is like a tight end one going forward, but he may be playable. And when you look at Pittsburgh's schedule going forward...
Yes, that's the thing. This is a brutal... They needed this win.
Yeah.
They needed this win because it gets ugly coming up. You see it there on your screen. They're home to the Browns this week. Okay, great. Then they're
Who just beat them?
Right, exactly. No, but you think that the Browns will be traveling on a short week. The Browns
the Steelers will be favored in this.
The Steelers are 6.5-point favorites.
Yeah, exactly. But so week 15 at the Eagles, week 16 at the Ravens, week 17 home to the Chiefs.
On Christmas.
And then week 18 home to the Bengals, a Bengals team that'll have nothing to play for and just play loose and F it.
Joe Burrow, 50 pass attempts.
Exactly.
Run up the numbers.
I'm not sure Joe Burrow's going to be playing by
No, I know. It's
probably not.
You probably shut him down, even a meaningless game.
Yeah.
But still,
1,000%. But
it's
still,
tough. It's a tough stretch.
But still, whatever. Eagles, Ravens, Chiefs that's as tough a 3-game stretch as there is in the NFL. And by the way, that's all during the fantasy playoffs as well. So just something to think about for people that have been counting on their Steelers. I don't think you're doing much, at this point, trade deadline is passed in almost every league, but just something to keep an eye on there as you're sort of planning out your playoff lineups.
On the other side, with Joe Burrow, if you told me before the season that after 12 games, Joe Burrow had 30 passing touchdowns, 5 interceptions, he was 3rd in the NFL in QBR, I would guess that he's like -120 to win MVP. Instead, the team is 4-8. He's doing everything that he possibly can. There's just zero margin for error. I don't really know what there is more to say about the Bengals. They're going to be in these shootouts. Higgins, Chase, Brown must starts every single week. Burrow, superstar. But now they're 50-1 to make the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, they're all for our purposes. You're still starting all these guys going into Monday Night Football. He's currently the 2nd best quarterback in fantasy, Joe Burrow, on a points per game basis. Proud fantasy life investor, Joe Burrow as well. Higgins and Chase have been nothing short of awesome. Chase Brown is going to be a league winner here. In all 4 games since Zach Moss went on the IR, he's got 19 or more fantasy points. He's averaging 24 touches, over 123 yards from scrimmage. He was on the love list this week as a top 10 play, and people were like, well, sure? Because they're playing Pittsburgh. You're starting Chase Brown against Pittsburgh? And yes, I am. I'm starting Chase Brown against any team you want to throw out there. He's that good. The usage is there as well. It's not the offense's fault for the Bengals' tough season here. My question to you guys is, and it's more of an NFL question than a fantasy one, but just because there's nothing else to say about Cincinnati other than this, does Zach Taylor keep his job? Someone's taking the fall for this. Is it Zach Taylor or is it
Lou?
Their defensive coordinator?
Yeah, I think that the defense is the story. That this is just insane that they haven't been able to piece together a remote. If they just had the 21st best defense in the NFL, they would have a real chance.
Joe Burrow would be MVP.
Yeah, he would be MVP. It's unbelievable. And also, even with how bad the defense was, they've been so close to winning some of these games. McPherson misses the kick against Baltimore the first time they play. They missed the 2-point against Baltimore the second time they play. They have the 4th and 16 pass interference against the Chiefs. That's 3 wins right there, and we're talking about this team as a potential Super Bowl.
The Monday night game against my Commanders, Jayden Daniels makes one of the throws of the year to Terry McLaurin in the corner by that much. I mean, like
it's been that kind of season for them.
Been that kind of,
I don't think he'll be fired. This is an organization that does not react that way, and they definitely don't want to pay a coach. They do not want to pay a coach to not be coaching there. And I know some Bengals fans might feel differently, but like Zach Taylor has had an offensive coordinator already hired away to be a head coach of the team in Brian Callahan.
Yep.
The offense is performing at an insanely high level. Yep. Do you want to shake up that side of it? It's probably just going to be a defensive staff change.
And that's where they'll head in the draft and free agency. But I will say this about Zach Taylor: they start slow every year. Now, normally they get it going.
Patriots loss, looking back at it now, is a horrible loss.
Horrible loss.
So.
Awful. Yeah.
All right, our next game here, guys. The Cardinals that we mentioned earlier against the Vikings. The Vikings pull out a close one. Sam Darnold gets it done at the end of this game. The Vikings win 23-22 against a tough Arizona team. Darnold finishes 21-31 for 235 yards and 2 touchdowns. He also had 22 rushing yards. And on the other side of it, your ride or die, Matthew, 2 picks. He does run for 48 yards, but a little bit of more of the same with the Arizona offense, that every time you think they can get going, they kind of take 2 steps back.
4th straight game with 1 or fewer touchdown passes. He's been under 16 fantasy points in 3 of the past 4. It's weird. Every time you think Kyler's going to be like breaking through to that next level, which is what I expected, which is why I made him my ride or die. I mean, and I thought the Cardinals would be better than people thought they would, and they are. Like they're a good NFL team. Like this is a tough loss on the road to Minnesota, but like they're right there in it with one of the best teams in the NFC. But Kyler is just the inconsistency of Kyler. At least 260 passing yards in 4 of the past 5 games. That's been good. Season high in pass attempts. He's running more, as you mentioned, almost 50 yards rushing on the ground. All that's great. But again, just like they get the red zone woes. They struggle in the red zone. Now, this is a good defense. They were on the road at Minnesota. Vikings have a very good defense as well. I don't know why. It seems weird that, Marquez Valdes-Scantling can score, 5 touchdowns on 6 targets. And Trey McBride gets 8 billion targets and can't get into the end zone once.
Yeah.
None of this makes sense. But Trey McBride continues to be awesome.
Westbrook-Ikhine
12 Nick and NWI as well. At least Nick Westbrook-Ikhine will get him to. But at least he got targets this game.
Right.
Normally he's been two
targets,
for 3,
touchdown.
2 targets for 106 yards and 2 touchdowns. At least he got 7 targets against the Commanders. But MVS again, you see it there on your screen, 12 for 96 on 12 targets for Trey McBride. Has yet to have a touchdown, 92 targets on the season, no touchdowns. He's second among tight ends in receiving yards this season, 30 receptions. Even if he had 4, you're talking about one of the greatest tight end seasons of all time. But just, it's super weird they can't get into the end zone with Trey McBride. And so, Kyler Murray, he's my ride or die, so I can't admit failure until the end of the season. But it ain't looking great.
It's not looking great, but at the same time...
But he hasn't been awful either.
Well,
no.
It's just he's playing really well. He's playing well at a football level. It's just not reflecting in the stats. His EPA yesterday was great. The thing with Kyler as well, yesterday in particular, and people never focus enough on this when they talk about quarterbacks and they evaluate quarterbacks. Kyler only took 1 sack yesterday. That is hugely valuable for the way that he moves to only take 1 sack. Sam Darnold took 5 sacks for 30 yards, and no one will care because his stat line otherwise looked very good, and Darnold was good in the game as well. But with Kyler, it just doesn't seem like he's just not getting the volume. He doesn't seem to have the perfect connection with Marvin Harrison, though it was encouraging that he threw to him so much more yesterday. The other thing on this game is...
He had the 2 interceptions. I would argue one was his fault, one necessarily wasn't.
One was an arm punt on 3rd down, and then the other one is the game on the line, you got to chuck it up. Right. So I don't really pin that
but
much.
He was under pressure constantly. The offensive line has not played well for him.
They don't have a lot of talent.
Also, got to go for it at the end of the game. I understand that it's 4th and 4, 4th and 5, whatever. If you convert that play, you win the game, it's over. And if you miss it, then the Vikings have to drive the length of the field. And the thing there that is always hidden is that if you're only up 3, the other team plays more conservatively and they settle for the field goal more often. Right. Whereas if you do otherwise, that the Vikings, they have to go the full distance to score the touchdown, which they did.
Yeah, bad day at the office for Aaron Jones as well. Bails out with had the fumble, had the bad drop in the end zone, but ends up scoring the game winner. So tough day at the office for him as well. Didn't get the volume that you would hope for, but credit the Arizona defense. They dominated time possession in this game, and so it feels like sort of business as usual. There's nothing here that I'm suddenly Justin Jefferson back to being Justin Jefferson again. Addison mixes in there. Hawkinson didn't have a great game from Hawkinson, but 6 targets in this one. He's going to be fine. He's still a low-end tight end 1 as well. And Sam Darnold ultimately, winds up okay in this game. Over 100 yards passing in the fourth quarter. Really impressive game for Sammy.
Our final game, and it was a wild one. The Colts win on a thrilling 2-point conversion at the end of the game after scoring a touchdown to go down 1 against the Patriots. Anthony Richardson, guys, just very Anthony Richardson stat line. 12 of 24, 109 passing yards.
50% completion.
Yeah, classic. I mean, 2 touchdowns through the air. He also throws 2 picks. Yep. But Richardson, after the game, just spoke on the team consistently having faith in him.
But also 48
to get the
yards
job
rushing
done.
and a rushing touchdown. Yeah.
Which is his. That's the Richardson stat
That's
line.
the Richardson. Yeah.
Listen to him after the game.
It builds a little bit of confidence. Just lets us know that he trusts us as an offense to go out there and make a play. Just put ourselves on the line and just go get a dub. No, it's just a lot of love for our defense. I threw their interception and they went out there. I think it was like 35 seconds. They got the ball back to us really quick. It just gave us a chance to go out there and win again. So I definitely appreciate our defense and appreciate the offense for sticking with me.
You've been through a lot this season. How do you think you've changed?
I don't think I've changed much. I've honestly just been myself throughout the whole process, but I think I've been able to relax and stay calm a little bit more, and just take it day by day. Try not to focus too much on the future and try not to focus too much on the past. Take it day by day and just try to get better each and every day.
At the end of the day, Richardson gets the job done here, guys. He had the win at the end of the game against the Jets. Obviously a tough loss against the Lions, but a win at the end of the game against New England. Right now, Matthew, this offense, as we expected with him and Jonathan Taylor, that's where the focus is, while everybody else kind of takes a step or 2 down.
And it's all on the ground, right? 52% of Richardson's points since he came back have come from rushing. He's got 3 rushing touchdowns since returning and replacing comeback player of the year Joe Flacco as the starter for Indianapolis. He's got a 44% completion rate over his 2 games as well. By the way, 26 touches for Jonathan Taylor in this game. He's had 23 or more in 3 of the last 4. It's like, if you're the Colts, that's how you're going to win, on the legs of Jonathan Taylor and Anthony Richardson. And you'll take your shots here and there with the passing.
Yep. I just say, I watched this game right through for whatever reason, and Anthony Richardson played really well. It didn't show up in the stats because his receivers the past 2 weeks have screwed him just like you will not believe. Anthony Richardson on the final drive threw the game-tying touchdown pass 4 times. They just dropped 3 of them. It was insane. And a lot of that is the talent that he's dealing with and Downs being out hurts, but I think he has gotten materially better since the benching.
Well, what's crazy is the same argument could be said about the game that he was benched after. Yeah. His receivers let him down in that game. And we probably think he was benched because he came out for the breather and they weren't playing well, but his receivers hurt him much in that game too. So Richardson, I will agree, Jay, like his stat line lies sometimes in terms of his supporting cast letting him down.
Yep. His underlying stats, he was very efficient in terms of EPA. And then with the game on the line, like they had to convert multiple 4th downs. He was money on the 4th and 3 game-tying touchdown passes, and then he gets into the end zone to win it at the end. Great call by Steichen, going for 2 in that spot. That is why you have Anthony Richardson in that spot. Yes. That's why the Commanders should have gone for 2 against the Cowboys, because you've got Jayden Daniels in that spot. This is the value of these guys, is they can get these 2 yards when you need it. So I think Richardson has really turned the corner. And so by my numbers, the Colts have this insanely easy schedule. Broncos is tough, but then they play Giants, Titans, and Jags to end the season. So they're plus 750 to run the slate. So Richardson would close on a 5-0 winning streak, make the playoffs at 10-7. Could Anthony Richardson win comeback player of the year if he finishes on a 5-0 streak to take the Colts into the playoffs?
The field is quite bleak, which gives you a little
hope. It's a pretty
hope.
incredible story. If he goes 6-1 after the benching.
Based on the new criteria for comeback player of the year, you have to come back. He had the serious injury last year as well. Obviously, only played like 4. He only appeared in like 4 games.
Like Darnold shouldn't qualify, is what you're saying.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
He's not coming back from an injury.
No, exactly. So it just depends on how they end up voting that as well. Want to mention A.D. Mitchell, by the way, who played the majority of the slot and filled in for Josh Downs, and I know there was some enthusiasm and optimism for him. 2 targets, 0 catches for 0 yards in this one as well. Alec Pierce 2 for 16 on 6 targets. It's those 2 guys, and I guess Pittman until Downs comes back in terms of usable pieces of the Colts offense. But I like that call. I don't think that's a bad bet, especially because, by the way, I don't think the Texans are for real. Like the Texans should have blown out the Jaguars, and the fact that they barely beat Mac Jones after a super dirty hit. You know what I mean? Like the Texans are vulnerable, and especially when you look at the Colts schedule.
Yep, C.J. Stroud is regressed this season. Not playing that well. Guy who is playing well though is Drake May, who really did whatever he wanted against the Colts. They just never punted for most of the game.
Right, and the problem is with Drake May, he's another guy that just doesn't have a lot around him right now. Where he makes one mistake and he threw the interception in this game that you could argue both ways wasn't fully his fault. I mean, it kills them. And Hunter Henry is his main target week after week. Waiver wire king Hunter Henry.
Yeah, the lord of our waiver wire show, Hunter Henry, finishes the week as a top 10 fantasy tight end. He's number 9 as we head into Monday Night Football. 30% target share with at least a 20% target share in 6 of the past 7. I look forward to talking about Hunter Henry again tomorrow on the waiver wire show.
Let's look at the injuries we're tracking coming out of week 13. Obviously, Trevor Lawrence with that concussion. That's a situation where, maybe his season will be over. I don't know how they'll want to handle him, with the contract they have owed to him. You got to be careful.
Feels like they should shut him down.
That was
Makes
really,
the most.
really
that was
bad
a brutal hit. And that guy should honestly not play football again, at least this year. I'm dead serious.
I thought you meant ever again.
No. The Azir, the guy who not
Evan
Trevor
Ingram
Lawrence.
tried to make sure he couldn't. It was a good brawl after.
But like cheap hit on Caleb Williams. He has a long career of this. This is not the first time he has taken.
He should be suspended the rest of the year for that.
Yeah.
Christian McCaffrey with the knee injury we discussed early in the open. Lad McConkey left the game with the knee injury, and he's been so good his rookie season. Rashad Bateman left the game with the knee injury. Noah Brown with a rib. Demarcus Robinson with a hand injury. Calvin Austin left the game with a concussion after a really strong week the week before. Dallas Goedert, they are hoping it's just a sprain is the latest, but we'll see. Taysom Hill left the game with a significant-looking knee injury.
Looked bad.
It looked really bad. We'll take our first break. When we're back, we got your Weekend Warriors and Sunday Scaries right after this. It's officially an Applebee's Pick 6 Monday. This football season, a Pick 6 during any NFL Sunday game will unlock 6 free boneless wings the next day on Monday at Applebee's for both dine-in and to go. And yesterday we had plenty. Head to your local Applebee's today and be sure to say your friends at the happy hour sent you.
The fantasy football happy hour on Peacock.
You could say Aaron Rodgers sent me.
Yeah.
That's an option as well.
That is well.
A couple times this year.
Yeah.
It's up to you. Weekend Warriors. Headline by
How the Jets doing?
Jayden Daniels. Here's your Week 13 fantasy quarterback leaders. Josh Allen just ahead of your quarterback, Jayden Daniels, that tops our list here, Matthew. We already broke down Josh Allen, but Jayden Daniels was great to see. I don't want to call it a bounce back, but what felt like when he was at his best this year.
Definitely a bounce back.
He was awesome.
He started running. It's his 10th game with 30 or more rushing yards, second most among quarterbacks. But the last 2 weeks, in theory, healthier. We started to see Jayden Daniels run as well. It's his 7th game this year with 20 or more fantasy points. Only Lamar Jackson has more. So faith in 5. It was great to see him get back. And, of course, one of the people he's always – when 5 is rolling, it's because 17 is also rolling. Terry McLaurin is the number 1 wide receiver in fantasy as we head into Monday Night Football. Season high in fantasy points. He's now had back-to-back games with 20 or more fantasy points. His 27% target share was his highest since week 5. They got him involved. That's been one of the criticisms of the Commanders during this 3-game losing streak. Was just where's Terry? Why are you waiting till 10 seconds left to throw a 90-yard bomb to him? Terry McLaurin needs to be involved, and they got him involved. It was a much-needed beatdown against the Titans, and now they go into the bye as well and come out of it at New Orleans. So hopefully things are getting better in Washington. But obviously, huge game for my Commanders and for Jayden Daniels and Terry McLaurin. You mentioned Noah Brown banged up as well. So at least Zach Ertz got into the end zone.
Bucky Irving also makes our list, Jay, in a game where Baker Mayfield was knocked out for a play with that brutal-looking ankle injury. Bucky Irving takes a significant workload, 25 carries, 152 yards, a touchdown. He also caught 3 passes for 33 yards. He is RB1 heading into Monday Night Football.
This is one of the most low-key, ridiculous games you'll ever see, with the finale as well, with the fumble costing Carolina the win. But Bucky Irving, the key here, 25 carries to Rashad White's 11. Now, super favorable matchup against the Panthers, who don't have a good rush defense at all. But the thing for the Bucs now is that they're scheduled the rest of the way. It's super, super easy. Yeah. Home Raiders, at Chargers, okay, that's tough. And then at Dallas, home Carolina again, home New Orleans. They're going to be big favorites in 4 of their last 5 games, so favorable run script should be coming.
Bucky Irving's going to be a league winner this year as well. Since week 10, he's the 3rd best running back in fantasy, averaging 24.1 points per game. Saquon Barkley, Josh Jacobs. Those are the only running backs that are averaging more than Bucky Irving. He has finally overtaken this backfield in a massive way.
Speaking of Carolina, Adam Thielen, 8 catches, 99 yards, and a touchdown, Matthew. I mean,
that catch to extend the drive was just unbelievable. And good for Bryce Young. We're not really going to talk about him, but
he's playing really well.
He's playing really well.
Big
and
plays.
At the beginning of the year, who'd you rather have, C.J. Stroud or Bryce Young, is a laugher. I think it's a conversation now, once again, at the end of this year.
Bryce has just been better than Stroud for, a month now?
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's not a little bit better. It's wildly better.
Yeah. So, obviously Stroud's still the favorite there, but Bryce Young now looks like the guy going forward.
Stroud's throwing to Nico Collins, Stephon Diggs for half the year. Tank Dell, he's got Joe Mixon running it. He's got the ghost of Adam Thielen out there. Seriously, it was a great game by Thielen and an unbelievable catch. Season 9 fantasy points, 9 slot targets, which tied for the most among wide receivers in Week 13 for Adam Thielen. He could be a thing. We'll talk about him more tomorrow as well. But again, when he came back, Bryce Young had him as a fantasy viable starter a year ago, and now back to targeting Thielen.
Ladd McConkey, unfortunately, was on our injury report, but before that, Jay catches 9 of 12 targets for 117 yards. This is Justin Herbert's go-to guy.
Yeah, and it was almost all in the first half. He just put up a crazy stat line early, and we'll get to Herbert in a second. But the Chargers didn't play particularly well in this game. But Ladd McConkey, the one bright spot, he looks like a kind of elite type of wide receiver now with how much faith Herbert has in him.
Yeah, he was unguardable in this game before he got hurt. Matthew, your favorite player in fantasy right now, Nick Westbrook-Ikhine.
NWI, as everyone's calling him.
Well, we call him 4 different names. Because you call him Ikhine, NWI. There's a lot going on.
Pro Football Reference has it, I believe, Akina.
Okay, so that's a 4th one.
Yeah.
I don't know where Aquino comes from.
Ikhine. I think it's Ikhine.
That's what I'm okay with.
Yeah.
Well,
Ikhine.
either way,
it's NWI or it's TD, because that's what the dude does. All he does is score touchdowns. He's the new Chris Carter as well. Since Week 6, he's tied for the NFL lead with 8 receiving targets. And what's interesting here is that he actually got a ton of targets in this one. He had 8 targets in this game. Previously, just been sort of he gets 2 targets and he scores on both of them. And you're sort of all right, he can't keep getting away with this. But now I actually think he can as well. Again, game script helped as well. The Titans were down big and quickly in this game as well. But home to Jacksonville, home to Cincinnati, at Indy, at Jacksonville. It's a really nice schedule for the Titans' passing attack. We know that Will Levis loves to chuck it deep, and he has at least a 20% target share, NWI does, in 4 of his past 5 games. So I'm kind of buying this, guys.
He might be a playoff starter. When you look at that schedule, Jacksonville, Cincy, Indy, Jacksonville.
Yeah.
Andy.
Yes,
Insane.
Exactly. NWI.
Our last weekend warrior, Jay, Parker Washington, in that crazy Jacksonville-Houston game with the Trevor Lawrence injury. He gets 12 targets, catches 6 of them over 100 yards and a touchdown. He might be a friend of Mac Jones going forward.
Yeah, I think that's the key here is that Mac Jones played well and put up numbers. And I think we're probably going to see a bit of Mac Jones going forward. And their schedule the rest of the way, very friendly. 2 games against the Titans, Jets, Raiders, and the Colts.
By the way, one of the reasons why Christian Kirk was on the trade block prior to his season-ending injury was because of the belief they have in Parker Washington in that team. They really like Parker Washington, and they were trying to move on from Kirk's contract. But that was one of the reasons. Obviously, then Kirk gets the season-ending injury, so we'll see what happens at the offseason. But I don't think Parker Washington is that much of a fluke, is my point. Because I know, just talking to some people around the team in Jacksonville, they like Parker Washington a lot.
Couple Sunday scaries here, guys. Justin Herbert has a tough game, especially after McConkey leaves. He completes 16 of 23, 147 scoreless yards. Herbert's worst game in fantasy this season, Matthew.
Super weird. They only had 187 total yards of offense and 24-minute time possession. Just the Falcons were so bad in this one. He didn't need to do much, but a weird one because I thought Herbert was going to have a big game. Super disappointing game from Cooper Kupp. Season low in fantasy points. His first game under 5 fantasy points since Week 12 of last year. Nakua and Kyron do much of the work here. They're home to Buffalo. They're going to need to score a lot next week. Kupp will be just fine. What about Breece Hall?
Came into the game with the knee injury, and you saw a lot of Braylon Allen and Isaiah Davis. So if you started Breece Hall, you got burned. It stinks. He gets 12 carries, 60 yards, and I'd be a little cautious going forward with that knee. The Jets were playing their other 2 running backs plenty in this one.
Are they officially eliminated yet?
I mean,
Well, yeah.
in our hearts, yes. Mathematically, no.
It's just at what point are they just going to go to backups here as well? Ken Walker also, for once, all season long, the Jets play run defense. I chose Ken Walker as our touchdown parlay bet on pregame. Every other one cashes, except for Ken Walker, who gets 3 or 4 chances at the goal line and doesn't get it. The usage has been there for Walker. He just didn't get into the end zone.
That's what the Jets do. They screw you over.
Yeah,
good or bad.
And Kyle Pitt, we'll talk about Kyle Pitts more tomorrow, but welcome to Dumpsville, Kyle Pitts. He's not even a full-time player. He's out there running wind sprints when he's even out there. He's playing like half the snaps. It's ugly.
All right, last call. Our best bets after our last break now. DraftKings Sportsbook is the #1 place to bet touchdowns, and new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your bet wins. Download the app and use promo code Barry when you sign up. DraftKings Sportsbook, the crown is yours.
The crown is yours. Oh, yeah, it's yours.
Last call. Here's the most bet Monday Night Football props on DraftKings. A whole lot of Broncos offense, but the headliner is Nick Chubb, rushing yards 40+. Jay, what are you looking at in this Monday Night Football matchup?
Well, you may have missed on Sunday, Connor. There was an incident where Matthew described Cortland Sutton, his name as C-Sut.
Yeah, I heard it when we were off air.
Yeah,
anyway,
I'm gonna make this happen.
I'm taking Cortland Sutton, longest reception over 23.5 yards. Now, he's only gone over 5 of the past 8, but one of the misses, he hit 23 exactly. If Bo Nix can avoid Myles Garrett, the Browns, they break down in the back end. So I think that he will be able to complete one deep ball to Cortland Sutton.
I'm taking C-Sut. Some people call him Cortland Sutton. I call him C-Sut. I'm taking C-Sut over 65.5 receiving yards. He's had at least 70 receiving yards in 5 straight. Over that stretch, Browns, bottom 5 in the NFL in terms of most yards allowed to wide receivers. He's got a big target share, obviously looking for between Bo Nix and Cortland Sutton. Give me Cortland Sutton over 65.5 receiving yards.
All right, guys, looks like we're all in on the Broncos passing attack. I'm going Devon Vile over 34.5 receiving yards, which is pretty surprising considering this guy had an 80-yard game last week. He's had a 9-target game last week. He's a real thing in this offense.
He's become the number 2 for Bo Nix.
Absolutely. So we are in on the Bo Nix passing attack against this Browns secondary.
You see right there some of my ranks for the game tonight as well. Jerry Jeudy will be interesting to see. Can he continue his hot streak as well? They move him around a decent amount. He shouldn't see Surtain all the time. Obviously, Njoku is a top 7 play for me this week. I want to avoid the Denver running backs if I can as well. It'll be interesting to see the Jameis experience.
Primetime Jameis.
Primetime Jameis.
Browns getting 6 points in this game.
That's interesting.
I'm not playing it, but I'm intrigued by it.
I don't hate it.
I feel like Patrick Surtain's going to have he's going to get one pass from James.
I desperately need the Broncos defense to have a monster game to save me in a matchup, so I'm hoping that happens as well. Hey, that music means it's closing time. You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. For Jay, for Connor, and C-Sut, I'm Matthew Barry. We'll see you tomorrow. Peace out. Hey, it's Matthew Barry from NBCSports.com and Rotoworld.com, and I want to thank you so much for watching whatever it is you just watched, or if nothing else, being too lazy to click out of the autoplay after this video started, after whatever it is you actually wanted to watch finished. But now that you're here, I'd like to take a moment here to ask you respectfully now, okay? I'm asking you respectfully to subscribe to the NFL on NBC YouTube channel. You'll get the latest Rotoworld fantasy news headlines, all sorts of great shows, including my own Fantasy Football Happy Hour. So go subscribe now. Again, I'm asking respectfully.